streaming. And I should also grab a... So, hello internet stream. I think I'll be now streaming health green. So it's now streaming. And I'll also grab a... So at the moment they've got me in the corner on black screen. So I need to add a display capture. Okay. Okay. Apparently I can't display capture. Remove. Yes. So we add a that's odd. It should be maybe because it's being confused by that it's not allowing a video capture device. So I can try window capture, and in fact window capture, I found that Chrome no longer streams out to OBS, but Firefox does. So if I Firefox, so I bring up a Firefox window, I'll be able to show the stream the Firefox window. Yeah. So, well, that's embarrassing, it says. So if I go to Inspira, continue. So, right. So this is going to be a digital exam. So I can. Oh no, I don't want to log in as a student. I want to log in as an administrator. Choose affiliation. Continue. Have all of you had a look at this yet, or did some of you, because I sent you the link, you had a look? Okay. There we are. Everyone else uses their full name except continue. Okay, no. Coming soon. Okay, so this is my view on Inspira, and you can see I've got, so I've been, it's because it's very bright in here, right? So no, you can't see. The volume, we're in laptop. Okay, apparently it was on laptop, but when I press laptop, it's giving me a countdown of a minute till it does something to projector, which I'm not sure. Maybe it'll turn it off. So it's saying I've got 37 seconds left. All right. Okay, so you can see here we've got things happening on the projects and on the exam. So those are the old. So gather. So if we have a look at, let's see, the 2016 exam. Okay, so this is how I get to create the exam with multi-choice questions and short answer questions.
No, it happened. Yeah,
Really? Okay, XML HTML. Aha. Not all is lost. Okay, so create new, window capture, make sure it's okay, and Firefox. Okay. And now I can bring that to there and bring that to there and make put myself over top. Can you guys see that? Yes, you can see me playing with that. Right, okay. So I'll make myself a small picture in the top corner. Okay, so Actually, usually bottom corner's better for that because usually there's less important stuff there. Right. Okay. So, so this is how I So this is what we get to see. English. Right. So it thinks they're all in Norwegian. Yeah, they're actually all in English. So, so if we have a look at a particular exam question, this is how I set my exam questions. Come in, come in. So what we have is and if you have a look in Blackboard, what we did was Blackboard Google. Okay. Okay, I'll have to go back to. Nope, not that one. I want Blackboard. There you are. Okay. Let's see if that takes me near where I'm supposed to get to, and I can log in. Aha. Right, so if we go to this course, we have a look at preview exams. Oh, I'll just turn it on to preview mode so I can see what you guys see. Right, so you do see that. Okay. So you're here. What it is? This front page is the front page from the exam this year. And if I live in that, right? Okay. So the exams are 75 marks because we have 15 marks come from multi-choice and 60 comes from the short answer sections. Okay, so the multi-choice are not a massive amount. However, you can take forward, I think we've listed 20 marks or 25 marks? 20 marks. So because we have this confidence indicator, you can actually take forward 20 marks out of those 15. So that counts. That kind of adds in to your multi-choice, your short answer section, which means yes, you can indeed score 80 out of 75 if you answer everything perfectly. You'll still only get 75 marks, right? But that will clearly be an A, and that's the highest grade we can give you anyway, so that will be the final grade. We had discussed whether there was a way that we could carry forward marks from one exam into the next year. So if you did like carry over more than 100% in an exam, whether or not we should allow you to use that as 5% in a later course that relied on this course, so that you could, you know, go, wow, I was so amazing in that course that I should get some credit in this course. We decided that was unnecessary. We don't generally have many that actually need to do that. I think in the 9 years I've run this, I think I've had 2 students score over 100%. No? So usually that's because short answer questions we don't give full grades to unless you do a really good job, and you've got to do that in everything and get everything right, and yeah, it's just not easy to get over 100%. So and with this limiting of only 20 marks coming from the 15. So we have the guessing, somewhat confident, very confident. So you guys read that? Do you have questions about it? Do you understand it? Should we do some more worked examples to make sure you know what's going on, or do you think you understand the way that that multi-choice system is working? So I'll make that smaller.
I feel very confident I know what that system does.
You know how the system works. You're not so. I copied and pasted this introspection question And for working through this, what you're supposed to do, right, is you're supposed to click on one of these, and then you're supposed to click on one of these, and then move to the next question. Right? You can, of course, click on one of these first, and then click on your answer, but once you go next, that's what's going to trigger going to the next question. Okay? Make sense? Mm-hmm.
Are we always able to go back to a question?
Yes, so in Inspira, when we go into Inspira and, oh no, not that one, I need to be in here and go F11. If I go back into Inspira and I go back up to the exam, and then go preview. Okay, so this is a preview of what you would see. And I'll just make that bigger. Right, so this is, to some extent, when you get to the exam, this is supposedly what you're supposed to log in with a code, right? And they'll give you the code in the exam to log into the system, right? And then with that, you get this as the first section, you then go here, and you can see you've got all of these down the bottom here. All of these are the numbers of the questions, right down the bottom here. That's in an unfortunate position, but so right down the bottom there are the numbers of the questions, and so you can set, I'll pick randomly, and I'll go randomly. Now, I believe that you guys won't have this check answer button, because we're not having you check answers as you go, because then you could go back and change it, like having checked what the answer is. Ah, right, okay, well, I'll just change it to that one then. So, try again. And so, as you see, check answer. Although it gives this one as the right answer, it's because Inspira wouldn't let me say that this was, you know, not a multi-choice thing, right? So it had to have one that was the right answer, right? So, yeah. And then to extract out the grades, I've actually had to set each of these, so the right answer is worth 3 marks, and the wrong answers are worth nothing. And then this is worth 1, 1.5, and 2. And so you actually get a grade of 1, 1.5, 2, 3, 4, 4.5, or 5 for this question. I then have to extract all of that, work out the confidence, work out the grade, and then inject it back in, because that's stuff that Inspira can't do. Right? So, like what you see here doesn't actually tell you what's going on. Right? The right answer is still the one that I'm expecting it to be, but you won't get to see that as you go, right? Because you won't get to keep trying the try again. This is why it's saying write 5 out of 5 points. Right? It's not out of 5, but yeah. I just had to manipulate the system to get it to do what I wanted. So you then, what you guys would do is, rather than have the check answer, you would just be able to go back and forth here. And then answer these, and it won't give you a, so you then go to next, it just won't tell you anything, right? So, and you can jump forward to, don't worry, this is not a question you guys have in this year's exam. Do you have a guess at what a pupilometer might do?
Measures dilation of pupils.
Yep. And show a positive result, meaning an increase in pupil size. Do you know when pupil size increases? No. So that's why it's not in this year's exam. I think you'll find it's aroused, but we'll go with guessing. And I'll check answer. And yep, it's aroused. Right. So aroused is when pupil size. Concentrating generally won't change your pupil size. So, but that would have, if it answered like that and said I'm guessing, then I would have lost 0 points. But if I said I was confident, I would have lost 2 points. Right? And yeah, so that's why you won't get to do that. And then having gone to question 10 through question 15, which is progress. What should a designer ask about progress in their game? that wasn't actually asked by me. That was one set by by Ivan last year. So I can't remember which is the right answer to that. But what do you think it is?
It's either number 2 or number 4.
I'm thinking number 3 personally.
Yeah.
Whether or not it's visible.
My assumption would be, is it visible?
Yeah.
Right? Because does the player see that they're getting feedback on progress? So we'll go somewhat confident.
Yeah, somewhat confident.
Check answer. Yes. So even though this is across, it's actually still right. It's just yeah. So it was. Is it visible? So I would have got 1.5 marks.
About this when some executive tried Demon Souls for the first time when there was a discussion of porting it to Europe, and he said there was no progression in that game because after 2 hours he was still standing in the same spot.
Right. Yeah. Is it visible? Well, yeah. Yep. So then we go, and when you click next here, you go immediately into the short answer questions. So this is one around agile development methodologies, and yeah, the idea is that you just write in here, right? And if we have a look through player types, there was discussion on player types we had that year, and the game design elements. So the tetrad is quite a common question. Yes?
Yeah, where exactly can we see whether it's the app or the game design track?
Okay, so you don't actually have it listed in here, but if you actually look, if we look through the questions, I think what we'll do is we'll go back to here. Okay, so if I go to 16, you have Agile, which is in both, discussion of clients, which was in both, pitching, which was in both, web design, which is the app track, understanding users, which was the app track, and testing, which was the app track, right? And then game spaces was games, player types was games, and game design elements was games. Okay, so what it was there was in the short answer we did, it was 3 general, 3 app, 3 games, and you have to answer 6 of those, right? And that'll again be the way in which this is structured. So you should expect questions 16 to 18 to be the common ones, 19 to 21 to be app specific, and 22 to 25 to be game specific.
If we answer more than 6 questions or what we have to answer,
Yep.
how should we mark that you should count this one or this?
Okay,
Or
so
are you just gonna take
so the last slide in the last question in the exam is you're required to answer 6 of 9. Right. So mark the questions you have answered. Right. So if I answer and you don't have to answer those 3. Right. You could say, oh, I just attended everything and really enjoyed those questions, and so I've just answered all of these questions. Right. That would be entirely possible, right? So I'm not asking you to make a choice on which track you're in. Just answer the questions you find comfortable answering. So I can say I've answered those ones. I'll still get to see all of your answers, right? But if you have more than 6 answered, I'll go to here and look at which ones you've told me are the ones that you intended to answer. Right? If you don't answer this one, then I will mark the first 6 I find that are answered. Okay? So this is more of a backup so that you can, right, they actually tell me don't mark the first one. Of course, you can't just delete the content of the first one to make me not mark it, right? But I will check here. We then have the strong and weak, and this is, as you can see, that was a checkbox. This is a radio button. So you pick the one you thought you did best at. So I thought I was best at game spaces and I was worst at web design. No. If you don't mark anything there, they're just all worth the same. Okay, so you don't actually, so if you didn't do anything here, I'd mark the first 6 I find and they're all out of 10. Okay.
Do I have to pick a weak answer when I have a strong answer?
You have to pick a weak one. If you don't pick a weak one, I will not scale up your strong one, right? Because I need to know which one you want to balance off, right? So that's so if you don't give me both, I will just ignore that. Okay.
And the system only benefits you.
The system only benefits you. I've had one student in the years I've run this who got it wrong, and actually would have had minus half a mark, but I nulled it off at 0, so I didn't change their grade because of it. Right? So yeah, it only happens on the back end of the exam grading, right? So what we do is we just grade it like normal, and then in the spreadsheet I have this number which then calculates a delta, calculates change, so how much more grade you'll get by doing this, and then I make sure that number caps it at 0, so it doesn't give you a negative. So it can only benefit you, it can't make it worse. Okay. I can show you the Excel spreadsheet if you want to see how I do this.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's not an Excel spreadsheet. It's a Sheets. Sorry, I had actually done the assignment 2 grading for some of you like 2.5, 3 weeks ago. I'd finished it. I just didn't realize it wasn't being reconciled.
Can you do it in Firefox?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll do it in Firefox, but I'll find the Sheets thing here.
So I was going to mention, you're not streaming Chrome, so.
Yeah, I'm not streaming Chrome. Haha, the stream can't see it. No, those dirty streamers. So I think I'm in here. And let's see if can the stream still see me. Oh, okay. Oh, I must be over here. Yes. Is there anyone on the stream? I have 3 people watching. Okay, that's not bad. They can live chat me if they want to say hi. Say something. Say something to us. Okay. Right. So if there is anybody on the chat, they can stream. Oh, I got to 4 and then someone left. Okay. Apparently. Ah, hi Mad Max. Excellent. Or Max. So not Mad Max. Max. Right. Okay. So and I'm in Portuguese. Okay. Thank you for giving me Portuguese. Now I have to work out how to get my settings to be not Portuguese. Does anyone read Portuguese and can help me change it back to...
Is there something at the bottom of the page? Why is it?
Well, it's because... okay, no.
For UX design, there should be like a flag button.
It would be not... Right. There's something that says English. Really? Okay. Choose an account. Okay, why am I in choose an account? Okay, I'll sign in with my account. Okay. Okay. Right. And right, so I'm signed in apparently. And it's gone back to being in English. No! Come on, I would have thought having signed in it would have remembered that I'd want... Okay. Okay, if I go to Sheets... Okay. Yay. All right. Okay, so if I look for the IMT1361, so I'll go back a few years so that you guys don't know these people. And I'll show you the spreadsheet of how I was doing it then. Back then we had the multi-choice was done out of, I only had 10, right, questions rather than 15. Right? We added a few more because of the interaction design side of things. So we made it 15, made it a wee bit larger. But as you can see here, what I was doing is doing the letter answer and the confidence, and this was the grade that you'd get from it, right? And if I can make those a bit bigger, you guys can maybe see that. So that was the multi-choice section, and you'd come across here, and then we'd have, I do things like your average confidence level, your numbers of 1s, 2s, and 3s level confidence, and the total negative confidence. So that student there, and if I do format, conditional formatting, and I do it color scale, and I go that way, and go thing, you'll see. So this student, negative 12, they were remarkably confident on quite a few questions. In fact, all 10, they were maximally confident. So they were 3 on confidence, so they said maximally confident on everything, and ended up with negative 4 as their grade. Which suggests they probably didn't understand the instructions. Right? They thought, I'll just be maximum confident, it'll be great. So they didn't do as well as they should have. There are a few here with like that person was remarkably non-confident, and so they were pretty much guessing everything, and they got 4 out of 10. Right? So they eventually scored 4.5 as their final grade. So actually, yeah, so that negative 4, he got 4 right. Right? So the guy who was maximally confident got 4 right, but ended up with -4. Whereas the one down here, who was minimally confident and got 4.5, also got 4 right, but got 4.5 marks by saying they were guessing everything except one of them, which they said, maybe I'm a little bit confident about that one. Right? That person probably should have been more confident. Right? But it's entirely possible that they did not know at all which ones they were right. But 4 out of 10, they're getting 40%. Right? So they probably could have been a little bit more confident, but yeah. So you can see there I've got those. If we have a look, this was, so we had these out of 6. So this was us doing grading of each of those candidates and grading out of 10. So these are this is so Part 5 in this exam was a multi-part question, right? We've removed, actually we still have a couple of multi-parts, I believe, but the 4, 2, and 4, question 5 is still worth 10, right? So when you take bonus and week, you mean all of question 5 or all of question 6, or in your case all of 20, all of question 19. And there you can see I put in a bonus and week question, and then this is the delta on the bonus. So this was they got +4 for their strong question. Because they had answered all questions relatively well, they lost 3.5 by saying which were the weak question, which means their sum delta was positive half a mark. So they were 1 mark better on their strong question than they were on their weak question. Right? So they got an extra half mark for that. So then let's say they didn't have a choice. You answered all 6. Now you guys have a choice as well, so it's even more complex. But as you see here, these were all, there's a 5 and a 3. So this person got 2 more marks, right? Because they were 4 mark higher on their strong choice. So we go through that. Mariusz does his marking. I do a comparison marking. We're looking for where we agree or disagree, right? Who's higher, who's lower. This allows us to discuss the grades when we go through. Okay, so why were we so far out on this particular question for that particular student? The answer, well, it's out of 2, and so I thought they answered it well. He thought they answered it badly. We then discuss, come to an agreement, and then move on. Right. So this allows us to spot any large differences and any disagreements that we have. So there's one which probably ended up being reconciled later. And so we also do grade comparisons. So this is so we do some grade comparison things to find out where we are. This is multi-choice versus short answer. And we also had a section where we were looking at one of the questions we needed additional discussion on. So that had been additional discussion, and there was one continuation exam for that year, and so we added it in the end there. All right, so that's kind of was our process as our grading process, and in the end, this you could see here we have a. I think these were where we. So true was where we agreed on the grade initially, and false was where we had a disagreement about grade. That one's quite a large disagreement about grade. Oh, that's a continuation exam because I didn't actually grade it, which is why it's got. Yeah, so that's why it's got an F, because I didn't actually put numbers in there. Right? But here we had a disagreement on a C or a D. Having discussed it and looked at the answers, we moved to a C. And I think there was a disagreement on a C or a D, and we moved to a C. And again, a C or a D disagreement, and we moved to a C, and a B and a C disagreement, and we moved to a B. Right, so that's basically this is our process for grading, is that we grade independently, we then compare. Where there is a disagreement about the letter grade, we go through and try and work out what that disagreement is about, why we found that there was a different grade, and then we discuss. Yep.
How many times when you disagree do you end up moving the grade down? Because there seems to be a trend towards
moving it up.
Yeah.
Yes, there is. How often do we move it down? By memory, probably maybe 1 in 4 or 1 in 5-ish. Are we convinced enough that a student has done badly that we argue someone down from a very weak C down to a D, for example? The arguments down from an A to a B are again, yeah, those are the AB range is also hotly contested to some extent. The CB range is usually one of us thinks it was good enough to be above threshold, right? And one of the things I'll look at is we will compare where the grade boundary is on the CB grade boundary, right? So we'll look at people who have here a high mark but are only getting a C and say, well, like, are they on the other side of that boundary, right? Because they're right on the boundary condition. Let's go back, and let's go back into the assignment, reassess the exam, and try and work out, overall, should this be moved up? Or do we look at that and say, yes, that's a C grade?
I think maybe it's when you compare, it's easy to see that, oh yeah, I might have been a bit hard on this student on that question, then rather than, oh, I was a bit too nice.
Yeah.
You see more than not that you've been too hard.
Yeah, and usually when we're looking at the boundary, we're looking at that boundary to see like the CB boundary, and usually I think it's our nature, we're trying to work in the student's favour and saying, you know, our goal is not to try and decrease the number of Bs or decrease the number of As and say, well, you know, no, we don't want any As this year. That's usually not our kind of natural instinct. Yeah.
I remember when I talked to you about grading last year, you showed me like how you systematically graded the exam, and I would guess that the reason why it often tends to go up is because there's something that one of them didn't C and that the other is C's.
Yeah.
So it's like you're looking for reasons to give a high grade, and you might overlook one of you.
Yeah, and because we have limited time, right? so often we're grading quite quickly under pressure. So if you miss something, then you can point it out to the other person and go, yeah, no, yep, I can see that. But that's our process for grading the exam. And as you can see, we're candidate numbers, so I have no idea who these people are. I don't know any of for me, you're just candidate 272. So, yep.
Some subjects have questions specifically designed to separate the A's from the B's. Is there anything like that on this exam?
So in this exam, no, we're not currently doing that. I have done that in the past, and I've looked at that in my multi-choice questions as to whether or not they do that job, right? So I don't know if I have it in here, but if we go and have a look at the bottom here, these are my correlational statistics on this particular exam. So I'm looking at the correlation between your confidence and your grade, right? So the second one's a grade, the first one's your confidence. For the short answer section, the multi-choice section, or your overall grade. Right? So I'm looking at how well this question predicts your overall grade. So I look at individual questions. I have also looked to do a correlation with the A-B separation. Right? So if you just treat your test, so if you treat each question as a medical test, right? So you guys understand, like, so when you go and get a blood test, right? This is a test to see some information. Now, you can sometimes get false positives and false negatives, right? And true positives and true negatives, right? Those are the four. If you do a blood test for HIV, or you do a blood test for antibodies for a virus, right? It may be that particular sample didn't have any, right? So you get false negatives. And you can have false positives where it just misassesses things. So when you look at an exam question, if you say, this question tests your knowledge, right? And if you do well, you should know lots. And if you do badly, you probably don't know anything, right? Now, you can treat the condition as being, are you going to get an A or a B? Or an A or lower, right? So I treat all A's as ones and everything else as zeros. And then I see how well does this question separate the A students from the rest of the students. Right? Now at that point, what I'm saying is there's two parts of that. There's sensitivity and selectivity, right? So sensitivity is, if you get an A, do you get high grades in this question? Right? So how sensitive is it to you being an A student? Right? So, and the other way is selectivity. If you do high in this question, how likely are you to get an A? Right? Can you vaguely kind of see, like these are looking at it from different directions, right? So if you get an A, do you do well in the question? Right? So let's have a question where there is, and I think I've got a question here. So there's a 65. Ooh, there's an 86% question, right? So 86% of the class got that one right. Okay, so almost certainly all the A students got that one right, right? So it would be very sensitive in the sense to you being an A student, is that yes, if you're an A student, you definitely got it right, right? It's not very selective because getting it right doesn't mean you're going to get an A. Right, so that's how testing works, and so in this one, however, what's interesting is that although 86% of people got it right, you can see in terms of confidence grades, count if marking if yeah. So here we have. One person was very, so these were the number of students who were 1, the number of students who were 2, and the number of students who were 3, right? So if I make that slightly bigger so you guys can see it more easily. So in this case, there were 21 of the 40 students were very confident. One of them got it wrong. That guy who was confident about everything, or girl, I don't know who it was, decided that everything was confident, and so they got it wrong, but were confident. All the people who were somewhat confident got it right, and 3 of the 9 students who were guessing got it wrong. Right, so 30% were incorrect when they were guessing. Right, so you could still say that. Well, apart from that one outlier who was confident about everything, that's actually a reasonable predictor of saying, well, if you knew it, then yes, you generally got it right. And again, this one is quite a nice example of that. So 70% of people got it right. Everybody who was confident got it right. Out of the 6 people who were somewhat confident, 5 of them got it right. And of the 15 people who said they were guessing, 6 of them got it right. Right? So that's actually quite a nice example of that question. So an 86 is an easy question, but still, the grade is a 0.6. It's a relatively good predictor, right? There's a 0.6 correlation between that grade and your overall grade, because the people who are confident with 2s were getting higher grades overall, right? This question, with 43% of people getting it right, was a bad predictor. Right? So this was a bad question. So I got rid of that question because it didn't mesh well with your overall grade. It didn't predict well what was an A or a B, or predict your overall grade well. And you can see 25 people thought, wow, I have no idea what he's asked in that multi-choice question. And about half of them were right. About 50% were right, that they didn't know the answer. There were 6 people who were, I think it's this one, I'm reasonably confident, only one of them was right. Right? Which means I've done a bad job of teaching that question.
It's another interesting statistic that I see here. The one on which 29 people were guessing, 4 of whom got it right.
Yes. So that was only 22 people got that question, 22% got that question right. That's a mean question, right? And 29 people guessed, and 4 of them got it right, right? Which means that question was a really, really hard question. 2 of the people were somewhat confident, and 3 of the 5, though remember one of those guys is the guy who's kind of randomly just saying, I'm confident about everything, so I could probably discount that. So that would be 3 out of 4 of people who were very confident, actually kind of.
4 over 2?
So I'm suggesting that the guy who was saying he was confident about everything.
But he got some questions right.
I can go up and check that. Yeah, that was one of the ones he got wrong.
Okay.
So I could potentially discount. I could bring that down to 4 and 3, okay, right? Because he was super confident. So that is a so for if you'd studied hard, yes, you had a 75% chance of getting that question right.
I mean, I'd still argue that's a bad question just because of the minuscule sample size you have
for getting it right in general. Yes, yeah, I would argue that's a bad question as well, right? So I believe I probably got rid of that question as well, right? Now, one of the things that I was able to do here is and I can edit this now, but if I go through and change those, it will recalculate. So 14% would have got it right if it was A. So if it recalculates 14 for B, 8 for C. So E was where people were. Yeah, so 41% of people thought E, that distractor, was the right one. Right? But as you can see, that's not what the students who were very confident were thinking. Right? So the very confident, only one of the very confident students thought it was E. One of the somewhat confident thought it was E, and a majority of the people who said they were guessing thought it was E. So it's actually supposed to be D, which So yes, it was a hard question, right? And inappropriately hard. So again, I use that as feedback. I try and get rid of bad questions. Right? So this is how I analyze my questions. This is one of the ways I go through and actually try and work out, was it a good question, was it a bad question. The confidence helps me because particularly when if you're comparing questions, let's see, where's a good example? So yeah, this 41, right? The number of people who are confident, so most of the confident people are getting it right, and most of the confident people here are getting it right. The difference between this 57 and this 41 is not really in this area, right? It's not in the confident people, it's in the people who are guessing, right? So it's a bunch of people who are guessing who were more likely to get it right, right? So I think, okay, so like I can look at those questions and think, okay, why is that true? Right? So I try and improve the way in which we ask questions, the quality of those questions. I also look at these correlation stats and say, okay, so question C, that's not a great question, right? Because it's not correlating well.
That's a negative correlation with getting an A, which is less than ideal.
Yeah. So well, so it's got negative correlation with the short answer and the overall multi-short and the all over and the short answer. Its confidence is still reasonably well correlated. So people who are good are still confident, but they're not getting it right, right? And so for me, anything like that means that it's probably a bad question. So I need to get rid of it. And I don't want to ask bad questions. I don't want to ask confusing questions. I don't want to ask questions which are trying to trap you or trying to make things difficult. So when I get a negative correlation like that and a low correlation like this one, right? That's also one I would look at potentially removing. That one is a hard question, but it's actually still reasonably well correlated, right? So it is actually probably doing an A-B boundary break because of these A students getting it right. That could be considered an A-B question.
So through a meandering path, we've got to an answer to my question. Yes, they are there. And
they were there in previous exams. Okay. This exam, I tend not to try and do that. I don't specifically think, this is going to be that question, right? But occasionally they show up, right? I then try and do analysis to work out where they show up and what are the features of an A-B question.
Do you reuse questions often?
So we've usually been reusing about 30% of questions, though we'll reuse forms of questions and change what we're asking, right? So, for example, we'll still use the topic of methodology, but instead of asking about Agile, I'll ask about waterfall, or I'll say, okay, here's this situation, what would you recommend as a process? Or this is a description of the group, what method are they following? Right? So rather than reusing exact questions, we generally go in and change some of the wording. For multi-choice, we'll do a variety of things. So sometimes what I'll do is I'll have 5 valid answers, right? And I'll write 5 questions, and there'll be 5 valid answers, and I'll just intersperse those 5 valid answers, right? So the distractors and other questions are the correct answer to a different question, right? Which means when I reuse that question, I can just change the specific question, and that therefore makes the correct answer different without having to change any of the distractors, right? So all of the distractors are valid answers, just not to that question, right? Which means if you've gone and studied just a bunch of answers without understanding the question, then you might get that one wrong because you recognize a valid answer and go, oh, that's a valid answer, I'll answer that one. But all of them are valid answers. It's just in this exam I haven't asked the question that's an answer to. Okay? Because have you guys ever been taught multi-choice exam technique? So there's research done that you can get about 70% in a in a naively written multi-choice exam, having no knowledge of the topic at all. Right? So if the person writing the exam doesn't understand how multi-choice exams work, then yes, you can go through and do a bunch of things to kind of analyze the answers. Now, because I know all of these techniques, I check my own answers to see that you can't just do this to me. But multi-choice exam techniques. So, for example, if you see in a multi-choice exam, if you see an answer that has a conditional on it, right, that says, you know, it is like this, except when the number is 0, right? So if you see an except when, or if you see something which says unless there are trees in the slope or something, right? So if there is something that has an exception in it, that's usually the right answer, right? Because usually for a right answer, it's right except when it's wrong. For a wrong answer, it's usually not wrong except when it's even more wrong, right? And so as an exam writer, when I write questions, I check the right answer and go, oh yeah, but I've got to make sure that it's actually true, right? But then I don't go and look at all of my wrong answers and say, oh yeah, that's wrong, except in this case when it's even more wrong, right? It just doesn't happen in your head. And so you don't write it down, which means if you ever see one of those, bang, you go for the one that has the exception because it's usually the right answer. The longest one is usually the right answer because we're short for time, so we don't want to write long answers to long wrong answers because we've got so many of them right, so it's generally the longest one. Often if there is a list of things, you'll see the naive examiners will take the list to make the wrong answers. They'll change one of the items and make it the wrong, right? So they'll take one out and they'll replace it with something that's wrong, right? So you look for the centroid. You look for the one that has the most commonality between all the distractors. And that's the most likely right answer because they started that as the base and then they stemmed it to generate the wrong answers. And so the one that has the most uniformity across all the distractors is usually the right answer, right? So understanding a few of those techniques
Won't help you in this exam.
won't help you in this exam, but you know, in future, if you do multi-choice exams, those techniques can get you quite a long way, even if you know absolutely nothing, right? But of course, because I know those, I check mine to see if I had exceptions. I make sure I add exceptions to other questions, and this is part of my also writing distractors as correct answers to other questions. Right, which means I'm in the mode of saying I need to write a correct answer here, right? I then just have to think of a different question, write in the correct answer. Think of a different question, write in the correct answer. So I try and make my distractors correct answers to other questions. Right? So yeah, which then allows me to later, when I want to reuse an answer set, I look through the answers and go, oh, I'll write a question that has that as an answer. Right? So I can reuse them, but they're not. So just seeing the set of answers doesn't necessarily tell you which one's going to be right because there's supposed to be a question that generates those. Come on. Okay, so does that make it clear how I grade and how you're going to be assessed? Do you have any other questions about the grading process? And do you understand that grading process? Are you fine with that grading process? Do you think we should do it differently? Well, there's not a lot we can change at this point, but I'd be interested in your feedback as if you think this is a reasonable way of grading exams.
It's an interesting one.
Right, it's interesting.
It's not wrong, it's interesting.
And you can also see how I'm trying to measure the quality of my questions, right? And try and make them better, and do that analysis on them. Right? Did you realise that we go to this length when we're grading, or do you think we just go, oh yeah, that's a deep?
Roll the dice.
Roll the dice. Weigh the paper. Well, now it's digital. We can't even weigh the paper anymore.
You know, actually, in my high school, there was actually a case where was an elderly teacher in like law, and he actually gave you the grade based on how many pages you had written on the subject. Except, of course, when it came to like an A or a B, but you know, below that, he actually was like, you know, an F is like 1 page, an E is like 2 pages.
Yeah.
So it does actually happen.
Yeah. So there are other ways of grading than the way we grade, but this idea of basically trying to grade independently to then compare and then go back and do individual assessment, right? So in Inspector, when we do that, I can go into Inspector. So is it that one or that one? It must be that one.
I guess the only thing would be, is there not a piece of software that does what you need it to do from the grading? Like, it seems like that there would be a better solution than the kind of hack you have where there are 2 correct answers per page.
Oh, and Inspector?
Yeah.
I tried to work it out, and I've actually, I was in a meeting with one of the CTO of Inspector, and we're talking about the way I do grading, and basically, no electronic grading system really gives you the power to rewrite how you do assessment, right? They just not something that pretty much anyone does. I've looked at writing it myself and writing my own question types for Lime Survey, which used to be PHP Surveyor, but Lime Survey is an open source online surveying tool. I've also looked at a questioning system from Auckland University, which, but I haven't got round to writing that up, right? And it takes time to integrate and write a module. So at the moment, I import the grades, and the thing is, the importing process I like to do anyway. So I'd still have to, and if I get last year's IMT1362. No, I want older versions, right? So topics, exam marks, experience. Right. Hey, yeah. So I think. No, that's not the exam marks, that's the assignment marking. I need to go to, there, 2016 exam, and it's copy. So we still have all of the, although we have Inspector, I have to load up so grade comparison. No, where is it? So no, I still load them in, but what I do is I load it in and it recalculates that and just does it all in the spreadsheet, right? So I'm not manually going through and working them out, right? The spreadsheet does it all for me. It's just grading responses. No, that can't be. It must have been one, maybe that one. No, that's not enough students. I'll have to look back and try and work out where I did the import. But yeah, I know I imported in and it automatically works out the systems for me. It could be that one.
So every combination of answer and option for weighting has a unique position, I guess?
So at the moment, what I'm doing is so on an inspector, because I had 3 for the right answer, I'm not actually able to generate which ones you answered incorrectly, which is what I used to be able to do, because I used to just be importing all of the actual answers and then had the spreadsheet work it out. Now I just get whether you got it right or not, the 3 or the 0, and then your confidence level on top of that. And so what I actually do is, you can see here, this is what I actually get out of the exam system. So I get a candidate number with a question ID and then an auto grade score. From that, I work out whether or not you were correct. Is it greater than 3? Right? Because that's the only way you could get it correct. And then I can work out your confidence level, which is, if you got it right, I subtract 3, otherwise I don't. And then that gives me your grade per question. Right? So I have that set up to automatically do that. That then generates my table here of your overall candidate grade, and that gives me the final score here, and these were so AF2. So I was playing with, can I get anything from the original number that came out of it, but I don't think there was anything that I could get. Yeah, these were, because I just get it as a long list, I had to cut on where each candidate was to try and make sure I'm grading that you get your grade. So these were every 26, right, or 25 questions, so that's why it had to split. And then these were the confidence, right, so the level of confidence for each person, so I could get an overall confidence assessment of how confident or non-confident people were. Right? So I have all of those numbers in there, but I don't get to do, and here I've got the correlations again. I can do correlations on confidence and correlations on questions, and try and work out, what were good questions and bad questions. And these were average grades across those. Right? So I'm extracting that, but I'm not calculating things by hand. They're all done by formulas, right? And so basically what I need to do is, when I get all of your grades out here, these candidate numbers, see immediately there's 27 is candidate 2. Right? So it'll go through and when I paste it in there, it'll just propagate all of the material through. So okay. So
example, will you be there? And
yes.
or
Yep.
again, someone that doesn't speak English.
Yes, I will be around. So we had questions previous years. What happens is, when a student asks me a question, or you ask the examination staff a question, if they don't speak English, then it may be they just have to call me. Right? Now, I can't be in the room because previous years there were 3 or 4 locations where the exam was being run. So I can't be in every room at the same time. So they'll generally ring me, I'll come in, I'll answer your question. If your question actually was an answer that I give you, more than it's written in the question. Sometimes, they ask me a question, well, it's written in the question. Where? Reread the question. Okay, yep, there you go. And I move on, right? So if I can do that, I then don't go and tell everybody. But if you've spotted something, like one year, and hand up my mistake, was that in my distractors, I had accidentally repeated a distractor. So there were 2, which were 2 of the wrong answers were the same wrong answer. Right? So a student says, there are 2 of the same answer here, what should I do? And I went, well, they're both wrong, so probably not answer them, right? So that just made that question easier for you, didn't it? And so I then went around and told everybody, oh, question 8, there are 2 distractors that are the same. I'm sorry, they are supposed to be different. Yeah. So if there's something which I tell a student, something that is relevant to the exam, I will go through each examination room and I will inform you of what I have told the other examination room or any other student who has asked a question, right? Because there should be no student who gets privileged information in an exam, is the technique, right? Which also motivates me to not have to come through and walk through all of the locations, including the disability location, and find that hidden in some corner of the university, where I have to go and find that person who's sitting on a computer, yes, on their own wheelchair accessible computer area, answering the exam. So, but no, I will generally try and avoid getting things wrong. But if you do ask a question and I answer it, I will give the answer to everybody. Now, if we go back to Blackboard, so that's why I gave you that as an example, and I gave you Agile as an example, and then you would fill in your text here. I just tried cutting and paste. I don't know what happens if you, like, I'm assuming this is just a text box, but it forgets everything when you, right, so you can practice bolding things. No? Okay, those are just images. I don't know. Like I had when I cut and paste, I had no idea what bits of this are functional or not. But yeah, and I was really surprised that when I cut and pasted in, it allowed me to click these, but not unclick them. So I can just, okay, they're semi-functional radio buttons. I mean, they can be clicked, but not. So I don't know what Blackboard's doing and why it lets me click some of these and lets me edit text here, but it's not really text. But yeah, so that's basically the process. You get a code, you fill in, and you go through. When you're finished, you go to the last page, say what you've done, say which is your bonus, and when you're done, it's submitted.
Do you use usability testing on the Blackboard?
If I used...
You use usability testing on the Blackboard?
Yeah, no, there are a bunch of usability issues with Blackboard, certainly. That is somewhat annoying. But extremely annoying, I think. So exit preview.
It's a pretty good exercise for some listener, I think. It's just,
well, yeah, no, I have some ethical issues with Blackboard, and I had considered. So when we were first reviewing them, I posted a request that the university not use Blackboard for ethical reasons. Because in the 2000s, Blackboard sued all of the other major learning management systems because they had patented things like Amisi, for example, is a student in one course and a teaching assistant in a different course. Blackboard had patented that.
What?
Yep. And had sued all the other learning management systems that allowed tutors in one course to be a student in a different course. And so all of the other LMSs had to create different accounts for tutors and students. And this is how Fronter was, right? Fronter, you'd have a tutor account which you could log into, and a student account you could log into, but they weren't allowed to have them as a unified account, so you had to have 2 separate accounts because of Blackboard.
I'm sure, every competitor being very inconvenient was complete coincidence there.
Well, that's why they patented it all, so they could, and they eventually they lost 54 of their 60 patents, so they've still got 6, but they eventually went to there was a large court case, and eventually the judges went, no, most of these patents are ridiculous. They're for things that are just reality, right? There is a reality that tutors are also students. You shouldn't be patenting reality. That's not how patents work.
You don't need to use Blackboard, right? You have your own.
So we are supposed to use Blackboard. So I've tried to use Blackboard, right? I've made I've been instructed to use Blackboard. So I tried to use Blackboard. Last year we used Piazza. So we used Piazza last year for a bunch of our source material because we're in the middle of the transition. And if I go to Piazza, I think if I go to login, I assume it's my NTNU login. And let's hope that this is not being broadcast. Though technically, you can probably work out what I was typing by listening to the audio of the stream. Damn, side channel attacks. So this was me here, and this was the class last year. So last year we had resources. So last year, oh, this was actually copy and pasted. Yeah, so this was copy and pasted for this year's. If I go to show inactive classes, was that right? No, that one, inactive full 16. Right. So this was the website we used last year for the course, and under resources we had the lecture notes were all there. And we had the assignments there, and assignment 2, and assignment 3 and 4, and we had general additional resources as well. And if you go to course information, we had announcements, and so yeah, we used this system. It's mainly a Q&A system, right? So we were basically trying to put it around a questioning based system. Yeah, so there were no unresolved follow-ups. 160 minutes was the average response time. So this gives us a gamification of our responding to you. So you'd post a question here, and it's a game as to how quickly we can respond to your answers, right? And we get graded basically on how quick we are to give you a response. Right? So we thought that's a good way to try and motivate us to give you faster response times. But Blackboard doesn't have anything like that. So that's what we used last year. We had all the students were enrolled, and there were, so there are posts and questions, and we had categories of questions, and so yeah. And in these, you can have both the question coming in and a follow-up discussion or an answer coming from another student, or coming from a tutor. Right? So Esker was tutoring, so he gave an answer. Yep. So that's how we ran the course last year. So there was a bunch of things I liked about Piazza that I don't like about Blackboard, but it's not the official system, so I was going to try and give Blackboard its chance to be a useful system.
The first assignment we did this semester, that was 10%, right?
Yeah.
And the second one was 15.
Yes.
And I see that you graded it 515 out of 15.
Yeah.
So
it's all over, but yeah, no, I'm gonna have to like that. So basically, it's trying to work out what's the best way of dealing with Blackboard not having letter grades, right? And so it's still trying to work out what we should be doing with it. Basically, it's a letter grade, but I've gone back to out of 5 for assignment 3 and assignment 4, to be the letter grade, right? So you'll get 4 letter grades. Because that's how we're supposed to do them according to the description. Right? We're not supposed to give you half grades for those.
Yep. So then assignment 2, that would mean out of 5 also?
Yes, yeah. So that's why there aren't any other numbers other than the 15, 12, 9, 6, 3, and 0.
Yeah. So 15 would be an A?
Yeah, 15's an A.
I still think my favorite part of that grading is that it gives you 5 decimal points.
Yeah, no, the Americans are very focused on very specific numbers, and they want you to give multiple decimal point grading. We tend to go, Well, because Norway doesn't have those individual scales, they kind of just give you big clumps. It does make some grading much faster because we can grade back from final grade rather than grade up to a final grade. So in the American system, because you're often arguing the difference between 66.5 and 66.7, right? It's kind of, wow, that's such a fine grade distinction. How are you doing that? Here it's is it a C or a B? And basically you're trying to make that distinction. You're not trying to go, is this half a grade higher or lower? Right, so it does help us with some of the grading. But no, the whole grading system in Blackboard is all over the place. I don't like it, but and it makes it hard for me to do anything in it, and it doesn't like the kind of things we do. So that's why I want to have the session on the 12th to go through with you guys and make sure you understand how we ended up with the grades that we ended up with. Okay. And make sure that, so there are some of the students who have emailed me have said, oh, I was in this group, but I didn't sign up to the group. So my name's in the report, but I'm not signed up in Blackboard. So I'm going to have to go and manually fix all of those anyway. And Blackboard won't let me change those and fix those for you because, it's decided once it's done, it's done. And so I have to manually do that myself on my own marking sheet and hand that marking sheet to the examination office and say, this person should be getting this grade, this person should be getting this grade, this person should be getting this grade. Right? So, yeah. So there's a bunch of stuff I have to do manually anyway. Okay. In terms of exam questions, so I had this session from 9 to 11. In terms of exam questions, these were old exam questions from last year's exam. That was us grading 71 candidates. So Jason and I graded all of those. We grade separately and then we compare results afterwards. If I go into a particular question, all right, so Marius has been touching that question because this is for the old exam. So do I want to make a new version, a register new, or edit the current one? I'll go into edit the current one, just so I can look. So here, when I click on this, so we write the question, and here we give it a grade, we give it a number. I could change all those numbers to extract which one you also answered, right? By making the right one worth like 15, and then each of the other ones worth like 3, 6, 9, 12, and the right answer being worth 15. And then I'd be able to check, if you got more than 15 in the auto grading, that means you got it right. And all the other scales were which one you answered, and then which confident you have. Yeah, but I didn't. It's annoying. It's annoying to have to do that for every single one of those, right? And here again, you see I have 2, 1.5, and 1 in there. Right? In terms of these later questions, apparently that was an inappropriate thing to do. I shouldn't have clicked there. Whatever that did, it broke it. So the multi-choice and the short answer. If we have a look at testing, and I'll make a new version. So they're short answers, but they're fairly open, so you can get to write about what you did and what you read and what you understood. Okay, so You're responsible for arranging a user test of a newly developed mobile application. Describe each of the steps needed for preparing the testing and the stages of conducting the test for one user. Right? So it's a describe what you learnt during the course rather than a did you know this particular fact. Right? So I've tried to avoid asking specific fact questions. That doesn't mean I don't ever ask those, but yeah. Other questions you guys have? Let's check the stream. Was there any questions from the guys online? The only question was hi. And oh, we're up to 6 people. Apparently they've woken up and got out of bed. But you guys have exams on the 5th and the 8th, most of you? Yeah. So that's why I gave these session times to try and give you a chance. But the reason why I also think the 12th is that some of you won't be thinking about this exam yet. Because it'll be, well, I'll get the one done on the 8th. Then I have a whole week to think about game design. Is that somewhere relevant to your strategy for it? So if you have any specific questions, that's also the 12th. Well, hopefully, therefore, you would have been studying for a few days, and hopefully, therefore, come up with some questions you want to ask me as to I was reading this and I didn't understand it. Could you explain that to me? And so, if we do that on 12th, you've then got a couple more days to think about the answers and to respond to those before we sit the exam. Right? So that's why I also put something in the 12th. I'm not technically supposed to do that because that's the exam period, and I'm using your exam period to give you a lecture session. But I know as a student I liked being able to ask questions close to the exam once I'd been studying, because I know if we tried to do this on the 23rd of November, none of you would have started studying for the exam. Were you studying a month out from the exam? You didn't start studying on the 15th of November for the exam? No? No, I didn't think so. I wouldn't have as a student, so I don't know why you would have. But yeah, so, but hopefully the 12th is therefore a good date to ask more questions. Do you have any more questions for me? Right? Or do you want me to, if you look on Blackboard, we can have, so if we go back onto Blackboard, hopefully all of the materials that we have will have gone up under not under there, under coursework. Those are the assignments, and it's under course information. Where did I put it? Nope. That's a meaty 7. Yay. It's under sources and syllabus. That's right. Nope.
Learning material?
Learning material. Learning material. Right. Week 1, week 2. So you guys understand how those work? You're able to go back through. You're able to look on the stream and find an omnom. So all of you are used to using omnom to find, or for listening. For listening.
Supposed to be an E in there.
Yeah, that's right.
For
listening.
I think it's dot. Hey.
Oh. Yeah, no, it's because that's entirely different.
Dot NM.
It's dot new, I think.
Aha, but it redirects to r.jurvik.ntnu.no. That's because all of HIG's websites, the HIG IT group here, were only allowed to edit HIG websites. And so they put all of .hig.no under .jurvik.ntnu.no. So everything that used to be a .hig.no is now .jurvik.ntnu.no. So, yay. But yeah, so if you have a look at published Uptak or not.
It takes a while.
Should we get it started?
I was accused of being so I'm part of a community policing project, and they decided that a new video of police in New Zealand that has me in it, which I think is yes, they're just making fun of me. But so yeah, if you go for me, I think I'm on some of them. So my ones are listed here. There are some of them there. Where the topic, I have to pick a topic and they weren't updated. So but those are some of the ones that I've listed as myself. I think you can also search. Oh.
You can go to the newly released.
Yeah.
Because it's released in order from newest
Yep.
first.
Yeah.
No, just search your name and then press the date. Your time.
And
Rachel McCallum is a lecturer.
my wife does also do sessions, yes. So so Rachel also has some oh, okay, what's it doing? Yeah, so no, those are done by time. So those are this semester's ones are there, those 4. With me as lecturer, do I go, is there a none at the top? Show all? Oh. Right, that was with empty lecturers. Can you do a find? 1362. So there's Miriam. So there was a session for Miriam on the 15th, and there's one by me, and there's one by Christopher, except he didn't get the thing right. So there's one by me. So yeah, so we've generally tried to put the name in. There's Ivan giving one, there's me, there's Christopher, there's me, there's Christopher, there's Ivan. So yeah, so you are able to kind of search back through some of them that way, right? And some hopefully also had links in the folder in Blackboard. In here, some of these will have the link to the stream and where it was. Okay? So that should help you doing some lecturing and reviewing of the lecture material. Now, generally the exams, we try and make sure that any question in the exam has appeared in the lectures, right? So we don't ask questions that weren't covered in lectures, right? That just come exclusively from the book, right? So we don't trawl through the book, find an obscure fact, and ask you about it, right? So unless we talked about it in a lecture, it's not going to be in the exam. Right? However, if we did talk about it in the exam, in the lecture, it could be in the exam. Okay. Any other questions for this session? Have any of you started studying for this exam?
I have some concerns I want to discuss about my assignment group, but that does not need to be on the stream.
Right, yeah, no, that doesn't need to be on the stream and can be handled. Yeah, and we can discuss that because you're also submitting the last assignment today, so we can discuss those and make sure that that's resolved, and that that when we start grading this weekend, that it's resolved. Any other questions?
So how many percent do I need to pass again? Is it?
So we tend to use a kind of mark and then look. We have a kind of default where we place the D's and E's and things, but if we feel that something's a fail, then we do shift the grade up and down until something that's clearly a fail gets failed, right? And something that is a pass gets passed. We move the, again, I can probably show you this if I've got it not on this one. When I have multiple people grading, often, so when I said we agree on the grade, what that usually means is that if I scroll down, working, okay. If 11, and it's down here. Okay, nope.
You have grades on the far right.
No.
With yours and Mariusz's.
Yep. Okay. So I'm grading. Where are they? Comparison grading. No, one of these has grading comparisons. Continuation. Question 18. Nope. Where is it? Where is it? I've got to go and find it now. So look up A87, and so that is position 9 in right. So okay, why is it not? Ah, because that's there. Right. No. So right, there we go. Sorry, that's where it was. I was struggling to find it. So here, what you see is we have Mariusz and we have Simon, and I actually used these so I could see them more easily. Right, so actually I changed it into a letter that is spaced in a certain amount so I can kind of see the different positions. But so what we do is we adjust this until we are comfortable that fail is a fail and a pass is a pass, right? So an E is the minimum pass. So for this particular year, Mariusz's E was 24% and my E was 27%.
Or if you have like just one quarter right, then you pass.
In this particular year, yeah. So 30 is the yep. So yep. So that was that we marked hard.
Why is it not 70% or something?
Sometimes we need 60.
Yeah, sometimes we need 60 at least. Yeah, we need 70.
Yep.
Okay, no.
So the variation in these numbers were related to us whether we mark. So here, see, I mark easier than Mariusz, but so it takes so I give more marks, but it's therefore hard to get a B because you have to get 79 for me because I've been giving more marks than he was giving, right? But we don't adjust individuals up and down. First of all, we try and adjust our scales so that we are giving about the same. And then we go and look at the students who are on these grade boundaries, right? So we're on those grade boundaries and say, right, is this a B, right? And if we can, we try not to change the grades of the students. We change our grade boundaries until we agree, right? Because we don't want to change rank order. We don't want to say, oh, this student, we're going to pull them out of here and push them up there, right? Because when we've graded them and we agree on the rank order, we should keep the rank order the same, right? So because I've marked and given what I thought is a good grade, he's marked and given like 3s, I've given 5s, so the same answer. We'd like to keep that consistent within each other, and so we adjust the grade boundaries. Now, if you actually look at Knockout's, because for our international students, Knockout grading recommendations. Actually, if I spelled it correctly. So let's see. A, B, C, E, F. So what Knockout does is they actually say that these should be the description here should take precedent over the number, right? So the number is irrelevant. It's the description of the grade that's relevant, right? Which is why they just give you a letter grade, right? So, and if we mark hard, yeah, I could mark even easier and make it 60% you need to pass,
Oh, no, you,
right?
that's not what
But
I wanted to say. I was just kind of
surprising that some of the numbers were so low. Yeah, it's because we look at it and say, well, you know, how many are sufficient? Is this sufficient to pass the course? Right. So, so the words are supposed to take precedent over grades. There is a recommendation. Though they try and hide it because they don't want people to see it. So, which is, I think, 40, 50, 60, 80, 90. Nope, that's not.
I think that the topmost document there talks about it, but it is in Norwegian.
No, that's all right. So I'll just scan through here. So yeah, so there was a suggestion from Knockout that in terms of trying to turn the letter percentages into letter grades, that E is 40 and above. Right? So E is 40 and above. So a 40 and above percentage is a pass. Right? 50 is your D. Right? So 50 to 60 is D. C is 60 to 80 is C. Right? So C is a massive grade. And then B is 80 to 90 and A is 90 to 100. Right? Which means at most universities, pretty much everything's a C. Right? In Norway. Because in New Zealand, almost all students would be getting between 60 and 80. That's where we expect students to be. Right? And as some of the foreigners, you have to get 60 to pass. Well, yes, so 60 to 80, you'd expect almost everybody to fall in that category. Right? Except people who have failed or people who are really, really good. Right? So, you know, 70% of the class would fall in the 60 to 80 range. So in Norway, 60% of the class get a C because that's the 60 to 80 range. So pretty much you all get C's because, oh yeah, it's a C. Right? That's the kind of expectation in Norway. NTNU has a recommendation of doing.
Bell curves.
Well, they actually recommend the grading should be 40 for an E, 52 for a D, 64 for a C, 76 for a B, and 88 for an A. So they try and make them 12% grade ranges across the whole range.
It sounds like somebody from the math department did that one, because it's like you see the pattern, you just like.
Haha! Yeah, which is why they have 7.5 point courses. So, but we generally don't use so the numbers. We can shift. We use the Norwegian approach of saying, well, does this meet our minimum level of passing the course? Right? And so that's the number we're trying to use. Yeah?
It's a question from a friend.
Okay.
So
They're not on the stream.
no. So
Still haven't had any questions. Oh. Yeah. Okay.
And it's a second grader.
Ha.
the question is, what kind of questions will it be on the multiple choice? Is it gaming app experience, or everything altogether?
It's we try to keep them everything all together, right? And so we tend to try and ask the multi-choice questions will come from the first part of the course and things which we feel are consistent across the two areas, right? So we try and keep those as more general. We've been discussing, and I'm interested in your feedback, because we have 15 questions, and we have the option of you guys giving us a I don't know and I'm guessing, but then make those grades up on ones where you are confident and right. We have discussed whether or not we could ask questions that were more specific that might have come from one or other track, right? We haven't at this stage, but it's one of those, because we have a catch-up mechanic, because we have a mechanic where you can score more marks, it might be okay to ask harder questions. But at the moment, we've asked them from the generalized section. So, yeah.
Do you think you have like choose one of these two questions for like app and game design?
So we haven't done that. We could do that in the multi-choice. That's why we created the short answer to have the choose 6 from 9, right? Was so that you could. But I specifically didn't want to make that choice and then answer all the app questions or all the game questions, because, you know, I feel it's quite reasonable for you to be interested in both. And therefore, if you find a question that you think is a good question that you know lots about, then you should be able to answer that regardless of which track you're in. Right? So I've tried to keep that flexible. Okay. Any other questions? So one of the things we're also supposed to do, and I need to do because I haven't done it enough, is get you guys to review the course in terms of, did you learn the things that were in the learning objectives of the course, right? And how do we improve this course next year to make it more relevant to first year students, right? Basically, we're supposed to get feedback from you to try and help us get better. Now, what we should be doing is doing that multiple times, including after the exam, right? So we're supposed to try and get your feedback after you've finished the exam to tell us about, you know, the course, having done the exam, reflecting on the course, saying, okay, so, you know, there were like half the exam questions were about squirrels, and we didn't talk about squirrels during the course, right? So you should be able to give us feedback on our inappropriate use of squirrel questions, as well as during the course, right? So it's sometimes hard to give feedback directly to a lecturer, which is why, although I try and be open and listen to the problems you guys have in the course and try and fix those, we know that is not always easy for students to give direct criticism and say, hey, that lecture was a bad lecture, you shouldn't have done that. No? I am interested, so Nadia came in and talked as an experienced game designer. She's a very young lecturer, as in this is the first lecture she's giving. So feedback about her would be interesting. Was she interesting to listen to? Vaguely. Did she seem inexperienced?
As a lecturer,
yes.
She was knowledgeable on the topic.
Knowledgeable on the topic, but inexperienced as a lecturer.
A bit over reliant on like other content, just being, you know, things that could almost have been a reading list, just playing a bunch of videos. Right.
Okay. So you can notice the difference between the different experience levels of the lecturers, which is kind of what you'd expect. Unfortunately, I have been doing this for 20 years already, so it's a long time. Oh, right. Should I focus more on going through the lectures again, or should I read the books?
The answer is both as a tutor and as one who's had the course, both. Because I relied too heavily on the lectures and got burnt on that.
So, reading the book is useful. Yes, John said yes. The answer is yes. So he's right. He's a second year, and the answer is yes. Yes, you should focus on both. So should you focus on the lecture content or the book? I would say that you've got, if you decide that from the 8th you have 2 days of drinking heavily, right? Um, and then you come back on the 10th having drowned your joy or sorrow in whatever state you're at after that exam. You then have 5 days to study for the exam, right? There are less than 5 days worth of lecture videos to watch, right? So you can certainly watch all of the lectures that were presented in that length of time, right? So you should also intersperse that with reading bits of the book, right? Because don't just kind of binge watch it like a Netflix series, because I know you guys can do that. But it's probably useful as a technique for reading. Read the books while watching the lectures. Yeah, well, you could be flicking through the book, pause the lecture, go, oh yeah, okay, I see that in the book, and then play the lecture again, right? So give yourself, give some of your mind a bit of a break from just listening to us talking, and do some reading, scan through things, find things we're talking about in the books.
What are we supposed to know about the lenses? Do we need to remember all the questions?
So in terms of specifically about lenses, referring to the lenses, you don't have to remember the specific questions, right? Because those specific questions were example questions of that area, right? To give you an example of that perspective. The specific lens number, I don't particularly care about in the exam format because in the if you're writing and you want me to go and look at a lens, right? Then and you're doing an assignment, you can look up and go, oh, what lens was the lens of balance? And you can lens of balance and get lens 85, whatever it is, and go, oh, okay, it's that one, and you can write it in, which makes it easier for me to find. So that's okay when you're writing an assignment and you want to refer to a lens, you've got access to the list. In the exam, I don't expect you to have access to the list of numbered lenses, but referring to the lenses as a perspective, and if you have the name of the lens, right, that you can put that in. If you understand that it's a perspective you're taking on a particular approach, right, a particular problem, and you're saying, right, I'm taking this perspective on balance, or a perspective on chance, or a perspective on the user, or a perspective on process, or whatever perspective you're taking, you can kind of say, well, this is the lens is this kind of lens, right? So it was you could so long as you're getting close and you're talking about taking perspectives, then we treat that as a positive. If you do remember specific lenses that you found useful, then yes, you can use those in the exam and talk about them as well, right? But I'm not expecting numbers, right? That or specific questions that a lens has underneath it as being, oh, I remember the question that was associated with this lens. It was this question. I'm going to write that in. I don't expect that. It's not the kind of knowledge that they want you to be storing in your head. I want you to understand the perspectives, and I want you to understand kind of that approach, and that generates questions of this kind, and that you should be able to generate those kind of questions. Okay?
Yeah,
You're not sitting the exam. You're not sitting the exam. Yep.
But for the exam,
a minute of 3 lectures playing simultaneously. That's an interesting approach. Yeah. For the exam.
For the exam, well, there's some obvious ways you could think about it, like a book or video or PDF, not PDF, but the other thing, that thing with slides.
PowerPoint.
Yes, that's it. And you should think about what are the different subjects and what sources do I have available to learn about them, or recap about them, etc.
Yep.
And some of the things will not be available in either of the books.
Yep.
I think, or maybe not fully available. So you should look at what you need to know. Yeah. And then you should figure out how to best learn about those.
Yeah.
And that could be either video or the book.
Yeah. So yeah. try and find your best source for knowledge. You find the second edition of Jesse Shell's book has a much better methodology section than the first edition of the book. So if you have the first edition of the Lenses book, its methodology section is much smaller. So if you can find a copy of the second edition to read the methodology, you'll get more input from reading the lectures, from reading the book. There is material in the lectures as well that we talk about.
And for the lenses thing, of
Yep.
course, the app.
The app, yeah, which you're not allowed to use during the exam.
Yeah. But it should be fun to use as like a game. I did that with Jonas last year.
Yep.
I played a game, because it has like a random, so you get like a random
Yep.
lens.
Yep. So the app with the lenses in it is a useful way of just trying to remember to take different perspectives. But I would let you use the app in the exam. But once I've allowed mobile phones can be used, it's going to okay. Well, I'll just text my friend.
Just probably in take-home exam, and
yeah.
that's probably not suitable for this course.
We had already some exams where we could use our phone as a calculator because we got it. Oh.
Right. So in the bar exam, they banned Apple machines because the touch bar. So predictive text, right? You know how when you're typing, it uses a dictionary to try and work out what the next word should be. Well, that's a file, right?
You can make references in there.
You can, and so you can download whole essays in there. So you can start the first sentence of the essay and then just go predict, and it will pull out of your database of predictive text the entire essay that you'd pre-written. And so you just go through doing predicting text, having cleaned out your predictive text system so that now it's just full of the 5 essays that you wanted to write for your exam.
And then just give it the 10 minutes. I'm done.
Yep. I just held down the predictor.
Come on, it's hard work. It's like.
Someone actually took the time to do that. I think they've learned a lot.
Yeah, but not necessarily about the law. It's not that hard, and also the thing is you can get someone else to write the assignment for you. If you're talking about a security thing, then yeah. But no, there are cheats around any piece of technology. Again, don't do that. You could probably do that to your predictive text on your computer as well. I'm not sure. I don't know if it brings up predictive text during the browser exam window, but yeah. We've not really worried that much because our questions are relatively open, and so we expect you to be able to kind of discuss them.
I mean, we have to take our laptops with us, so we're gonna write these things on our computers.
Yes.
And they will not have to log into the system to make it. I mean, we could download all the lecture slides and.
So, the exam system inspector that we use, when you log in, it locks your computer so that you can't. Yeah, to the point where if you quit out of the program without exiting it properly, you have to go into your registry and clean out the keys manually so that you can use your computer again. Right? So it goes in and screws with your registry to try and stop you accessing websites or accessing any other application while it's running.
Kind of like a friendly virus.
Yeah, friendly?
Yeah, no, that's what I'm worrying about. It's not a friendly virus. It's
An acquired virus.
It's which I know I had students last year refuse to use their own computer for it because they didn't want that level of viral program, registry editing program on their computer. They didn't want it to be locked down that way, so they requested to borrow a machine.
So we can do that. That's nice.
You can request to borrow a machine, yes. Though I think you have to put the request in soon for that. I think, yeah. And then you have to learn to use the Norwegian keyboard. If
the keyboard is, or if his laptop is big, you then you could probably bring a keyboard.
You might be able to bring your own keyboard, but yeah. So, but no, and you can also get it to change over and things. But yeah, no. So, generally, that's where most of the effort has gone in for Inspira, is to try and lock down your machine so that you don't access anything else other than the browser, right? The safe browser. So it's the browser window is then what your machine is doing, and you can't swap out of it. You can't quit out of it until you quit out of the program. And when you quit out of the program, if you try and quit out by restarting your machine, you then can't get back into your exam because your code's been used. So you then have to get the examiners over, and we have to kind of work out, okay, so your machine ran out of power and you had a crash. Fine, right, okay, so now we have to kind of reinitiate a code and do a whole bunch of work, right? So we don't, yeah. So you can't just Control Tab out, you can't Windows key out to get to anywhere else once you're in the exam. Right? And if you quit the exam, then you're submitting your grade as at that point. So that's what it tries to do. So it's a bring your own devices. Because we can't afford to buy, thousands of laptops and have them sitting doing nothing for most of the year and then make you sit the exam on them. Or desktops. And we don't have the space for that many desktops.
Notes.
Notes.
For the exam.
Okay. So if we go and have a look at the actual
This restricts your exam to basically being a piece of paper where you write stuff. Why are we using laptops instead of just doing the multiple choice and short answers on paper?
Have you seen the handwriting of your fellow students? Because I've had to, and it's not pretty.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, we used to do it on paper, but it is just, yeah. So this is the only exam that I do this way, right? All my other exams are either oral or take-home exams or project-based. I don't generally like exams, right? And these guys have you did my take-home graphics exam. Yeah, Mimisi hasn't yet. But that's because it's next semester. I prefer take-home exams. I prefer you to have full access to everything and have a proper IDE, and I wouldn't expect you to write code on paper or as text in a text window. I expect you to write code in a full IDE where you can compile it and test it and stuff, right? So yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me to do what they currently do. So examination aids are category C examination aids. So category C's right. So we still have category C, which we've allowed because I think it's interesting for you guys to generate this over the next 2 weeks. If you look at category C, it says specific printed and handwritten material is allowed. A specific basic calculator is allowed. So the specified printed and handwritten material is allowed. So if we go back to the description of the course and we go forms of assessment. So where is the exam? Both parts must be passed. Reset. So let's see.
I think that the calculator is specified by the examination office.
Yep.
Basically leaving strict for all functions, but not sure about the printed or handwritten support. Though I don't think you can bring the book.
No.
No, but you can print out your book.
No.
So what if I'm gonna write a script?
But I think
A
this
summary of everything, I can take it with me. What?
I think there's a certain size limit to it.
Yeah, no, so I was just looking for where we'd given you that information, and to make sure that what I'm giving you is the correct information for this year's course. I'll just see if it's got it in the Norwegian. I thought I... Hmm? 2. Right, so help mid-year C.
Might be there in the English version.
I'll go in the English version. Published 3 days before the exam. Okay, so we've not got the room. So, so in the course description, we don't have what that C is, which is, I think. So, because basically I have to refer to this, right? Because this is the official material that's been given to students, right? So I'm not supposed to give you different instructions from what you can read on here, right? So that's why I want to make sure anything I say is consistent with the written material, because there are some people who won't be on the video or won't be in the room and won't bother to look. So yeah.
Right. The specific calculators, it's 5 different models they're specified. 2 from Casio, 2 from Citizen, and 1 from Hewlett-Packard.
Yeah, they have the available ones for sale in the store thing.
Yeah.
But it doesn't say which written things you are allowed to have. You're also allowed to have a simple bilingual dictionary if the examination is held in a language other than your native tongue.
Yep. This exam is, as you can tell, is in English. So you guys are allowed an English to Norwegian dictionary or an English to any other German, French, Austrian, Polish dictionary. No supplement. Calculators. So specified, no handwritten. So we used to have this as a C, though I had intended to move it to a D, category examination 8. So because we don't have the explanation in here of what specified written material you're allowed to bring, right? So I'd actually removed that. Now in older exams we had the description of material. Because I haven't specified it anywhere, I'm reluctant to actually do it, right? What we used to do, right? And I mean, we can take this under advisement now, even though we're over time. So to encourage you guys to note things down, what we previously had allowed students was a single A4 piece of paper with anything you like written on it. So write what you like on a single A4 piece of paper. You can double-side it, but you're not allowed any magnifying equipment.
Good to specify.
So we had specified no magnifying equipment and a single A4 sheet of paper.
So you can use like red and blues and then 3D glasses.
And try and extract twice as much information by doubly printing it in red and blue. And
invisible ink, there's the third layer.
You just have to print it with, size 5.
5 point. You can get a lot of material on a 5-point sheet of paper, right? If you have no white space and you're just packing it. Yeah. Basically, yeah. The idea of having printed out a massive amount onto a single sheet of paper and then trying to remember everything out of that. I like it when you handwrite it, right? When you actually write it yourself, right? And so we had handwritten as a requirement for this previously, but I haven't written anything down in the course description here, right? So I'm reluctant, because I haven't written in the course description. I generally say there isn't any benefit to doing that, right? So yeah, once you can print it out, once you you're trying to print out everything and remember it there, then yeah, it makes the exam less relevant, right? So at the moment we have we've moved to digital and a dictionary and a calculator if you want a calculator. Then you can use those. There's no maths in the exam, right? We don't ask any maths questions, so you shouldn't need a calculator. So at the moment, I'm saying that because we haven't written it down in the course description, and it's the course description that takes precedence over anything that I say in here, means that we'll go with no supplementary written material.
But even when you can't bring it, handwriting that piece of paper is a really useful study technique.
Yes. Yep. So writing stuff down activates other parts of your memory, right? So you're more likely to remember things you've written than you are just things you've heard. Also, for a study technique, you guys know the difference between recall and recognition? So one of the things you've got to be careful of when you're reading if you watch the exam or you read the book, your brain will try and fool you into thinking you know more than you do, right? Because when you read, you will recognize material, right? So when you watch my lecture, you will recognize, oh yeah, I was there, I remember him saying that, and I was there, I remember him saying that, and I remember all of this stuff because when I watch it, I recognize it all, right? The trick is to do recall, is that when you don't see me talking, that you can remember what I had said, right? And that means what you should do is you should think about the lecture, try and remember as much as you can about the topic, and note those down, and then watch to see how much you actually recalled rather than just recognized, right? Because this is not going to be a game show where I'm standing in the front there talking at you and you have to guess whether or not I had said this previously, right? That would be quite a different exam, would be to then record an exam lecture and you sit through the lecture saying, yes, you said that during the course, no, you didn't say that, yes, you said that, no, you didn't say that, right? That would be quite a different exam. I have not thought of doing an exam that way before. It would be quite mean, I would think. But yeah, so no, you should be able to remember the stuff yourself, right? So try and test yourself, try and think about stuff, write stuff down yourself, write about, look at, we've got a couple of questions. I'll put up more questions over the next few days up into the previous exam section. And so try and think about those questions, see if you can recall things rather than just recognize them. Okay? So if you want to give us feedback about the course, what would be your preferred way of giving us feedback about the course?
Anonymously online.
Anonymously online? Would an anonymous Blackboard survey, seeing I tried to find out who you were from anonymous, and I know there is no way I can work it out. So would anonymously on Blackboard would be reasonable, or a Google form? Do you particularly care?
Anything but Blackboard.
Right, so if I do an announcement with a link to the Google Forms submission where you can just fill in the Google form and give me feedback and have a text box that you can anonymously give us feedback about the course. That would be your preferred?
Is it required for lecturers to get feedback from their students, or is it just you trying to?
It's both. I've always been interested in feedback from my students. NTNU have a whole big system around it that we are required to do. The problem we have is I don't have the time to do the amount of required work that I should do for getting all that feedback. But so no, I'm honestly so some lecturers will be doing it just to tick the boxes, right? Because they have to. I'm actually interested in trying to improve the course with your feedback, right? So I'm actually interested in your feedback because I want to make the courses better, right? So yeah, but yeah, but if you want, so if you feel the best way of giving feedback is anonymously through a form where you can got some questions and some text boxes where you can write in your own thoughts. If that's your preferred way, then we can do it that way. Okay. And what I'll do is I'll put that out over the weekend, and if you want, we can discuss that on the 12th as well. If there's anything that comes up from that, I can discuss it and give you feedback on the 12th. And I'll send out another one after the exam, which you can then comment on if you feel the need to. Okay. Right. So good luck for the exams next week. You've got for many of you. Some of you have already done a cloud exam this week. Ethical hacking, right. So for those people who have exam, good luck, and I'll see you on the 12th if you're here. Otherwise, you can just watch me on the stream. Okay. Bye-bye, stream people. I'm going to sign off now. Let's see, where are we?
Simon, have you figured out how to change the grading center stuff?
No.
So, have you figured out how to delete it so I can do it again for group 11? Remember I mentioned it to you multiple times?
Yes. No, but I gave them a grade. I gave them a grade. I didn't use your grade. I didn't use your grade. I gave them a grade.
Yeah, but what about the comments?
I wrote in my own comment, my version of the comments.
Okay, so you discarded mine.
I wrote in the feedback myself as to what the feedback to the user would be.
I think you should probably stop the stream.
That's what I'm saying. So, okay. Bye bye. Any last comments from the stream? What's your book? What if you run the exam in a sandbox Windows window? I think it would detect that it was running in a virtual box
Depends
version.
who's made it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think so. And considering that, you know, at least this part of engineering has such a high percentage of security,
People.
and the focus on security in terms of computer science there outweighs programming.
And the other thing is, if we walk past while you're sitting in the room doing the exam, and I walk past and I see you during your exam on another website, right?
You fail.
You immediately fail.
Yep.
And potentially lose the semester.
Yep.
And fail all courses that semester.
Yep.
So
Don't cheat.
yeah, don't cheat. Basically, just don't cheat, right? There's no win from cheating. But right. So if I go to OBS and I go stop stream.